Hi there, my name is Amanda Newell, and this is Mammalogy Exam 1. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolutionary transformation of mammals. There are three main things that set mammals apart from other species, other classes of animals. First is their unique jaw form. The jaw has a very unique joint and has evolved through time. Um, Several of the jaw bones have actually moved up into the inner ear, which has greatly influenced hearing ability in mammals. And then there's also a robust cheek teeth and molars, which allow animals to chew on the side of their mouth. This is different from previous species where they had more robust incisors on the front of their mouth. Next is the secondary palate. The secondary palate is a bony plate that lies beneath the original roof of the mouth. Um, this creates a passage of air between the front nasal passages to the back of the mouth. So having this passage allows air movement from the nose to the back of the throat during things such as chewing or suckling. This is what allows mammals to suckle and nurse from a mother. Um, it's very important that animals are able to breathe and chew and eat at the same time. You can see how important this is when infants are born with a cleft palate. That's something that's needing to be repaired right away, and luckily today there are surgeries that can repair that. And then finally is the hind limb movement. Mammals have a hind limb movement that's a little bit different than other animals. You see more in reptiles, amphibians, a sprawling limb posture where they're more close to the ground. Then mammals have a posture and leg movement that's more in a parasagittal plane, more up and down. This allows for quicker movement, running, just a different style of movement altogether. There are three reproductive subclasses when it comes to mammals. These are divided based on how they reproduce. I'm going to start with the least common. This is the monotremes. Um, these are very unique animals. Um, this divergence happened at the Eocene and possibly even the late Cretaceous period. They do have similarities with other mammals such as hair, the production of milk. They are homeothermic. Um, but then there are some major differences. Um, what most people think of is they're oviparous, which means that they do lay eggs. They also have a structure to excrete waste different from the other animals. It's just one opening where all waste is excreted. Um, these animals have no teeth. They have more of a bill or a beak structure. Um, they're found in Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, so just kind of in a very small portion of the world. Examples of these animals are the platypus and the echidnas. There's 4 different types of echidnas, but these are all very unique animals, especially when you think of the platypus, how different they are from other mammals. It's almost like they're pieced together from a bunch of different species. Next is the marsupials. The marsupials diverged about 100 million years ago in the mid-Cretaceous period. They share the same similarities, that hair, milk production, homeothermic. Um, Differences with them, they have a pouch structure where their young mature after they're birthed. The young are birthed in a more embryonic state. They don't have hind limbs, they have very rudimentary lungs. There are some senses that are quite developed when they're born, but the young are birthed, then they reside within the pouch for a period of time. These animals are found in Australasia and the Neotropic region, Some examples are the kangaroo, the koala. North America does have one species, the possum, that is a marsupial. Um, so they are kind of a little wider spread, excuse me, a little wider spread than the previous subclass, but this is not nearly as prevalent as the final subclass we're going to talk about. The final subclass we're going to talk about is the placentals. This evolutionary divergence occurred about 125 million years ago in the early Cretaceous period, so a little before the marsupials. Scientists were able to discover a fossil named Omea scansoria. They found this fossil in China. It was very well preserved. There was even hair still attached to it. So this gave scientists a really good timeline of when this animal or when the placentals really started to develop. They share those same similarities, but differences with them. The young are carried in the uterus and nourished by a placenta. The marsupials do have a rudimentary placenta, but this is a true placenta that is birthed with the young. The young are birthed developed. There's no pouch that where they're needing to be further developed. Some other differences with the placentals, they have the highest BMR, basal metabolic rate, and body temperature of the three types. They also have two sets of teeth. The marsupials do not have nearly as many teeth, and then the placentals have two sets of teeth. So they have baby teeth or milk teeth that eventually fall out when the adult teeth replace them. These animals are the most widespread of the three. They're pretty much found globally. Some examples are a mouse or a wolf, people, cats. My cat is not leaving my lap, so I do apologize. But it's most of the animals that you think of when you think of mammals and their typical form of reproduction because they are so widespread and so common. Mammals have very unique sensory organs. I'm going to talk a little bit about the sense of smell today. Smell is very acute in mammals, and this is most likely a result of a nocturnal ancestry. The gene family of the olfactory receptors is the largest gene family in the mammalian genome. I found this very interesting. And the way that mammals smell are small sensors that are distributed across mucosal surfaces and areas. They also have what's called a Jacobson's organ. This detects pheromones and is essential for many physiological and behavioral changes that mammals undergo. When it comes to the sense of smell across species, rodents have probably the most developed sense of smell. The olfactory bulbs take up quite a large portion of their brain. Whales and higher primates have a smaller olfactory bulb, and so their sense of smell is not as acute, and then it's completely absent in porpoises and dolphins. What I did find interesting was that there are still the same amount of genes present in all of those. So those genes, that large genome, is still present. They're just not being exhibited. Also, with those higher primates, the sense of smell can be more related to memory than survival needs. So that's why when you smell something that you haven't smelled in years, it can bring back a memory very vividly, more so than any other sense. So next is reproductive timing. There are 3 ways to delay reproduction. The first is called delayed fertilization. So this occurs when sperm is viable long after spermatogenesis. Typically in the males, the male reproductive system is going to be out of phase. So the testes will have regressed when the caudal epididymides and accessory organs are most enlarged and ready for mating, so that sperm will stay viable within the male reproductive tract for quite some time. And then females don't actually ovulate until long after insemination. They store viable sperm for up to several months. This can be very advantageous when there are long periods of dormancy. So the energy can be used for the spermatogenesis, for mating. When there's a lot of food around, when there's a lot of energy available, they can go into dormancy and then not actually have to go through the pregnancy or birth until more energy is available in the springtime. So this is common a lot of times in bat species in the northern temperate regions, such as the little brown bat. We'll talk a little bit more about little brown bat hibernation a little later, and you can see why this type of fertilization can be very advantageous to them. Next is delayed implantation. This is common in pinnipeds, black bears, polar bears, and an armadillo species. So it can be obligate or facultative. In obligate delayed implantation, ovulation, fertilizations, early cleavages all occur normally, but the blastocyst development and implantation are arrested in the uterus. So the blastocyst can remain dormant in the uterus for 12 days to 11 months. It's really a pretty wide range. The blastocyst will emerge from dormancy and implant and develop as normal. In the second form, this implantation still occurs in the same way, but this is more dependent on the female. It sometimes happens when the female is inseminated soon after birth. They may be still nursing a litter, and they just don't have the means or energy to become pregnant, or if they did, could not care for both litters. So the delay will occur while the female is still suckling. In delayed development, fertilization and implantation occur as normal. So the blastocyst is still at the stage where it's dormant. With the previous type, that blastocyst is dormant before it's implanted. In this type, it becomes dormant right after it's implanted. This allows females the flexibility to respond to poor environmental conditions, or to synchronize the birthing period so that all young in a group are born around the same time. This is common again in bat species such as the California leaf-nosed bat and the Jamaican fruit bat. And finally today I'm going to talk a little bit about hibernation. Going back to the little brown bat we talked about earlier, they undergo a true deep hibernation. There's also a shallow hibernation. Bears actually undergo this, so a lot of times when you think of bears hibernating, it's not really a true hibernation. The little brown bat, on the other hand, does go through a true deep hibernation. So these bats are located in the northern United States and up into Canada. They hibernate from September to April. The females tend to hibernate first. Males might stay a little more active even into November, especially the younger males. So the bats will enter a state of hibernation in order to withstand the brutal cold of their habitat. The deep hibernation may last up to 90 days before any kind of arousal occurs. The resting heart rate of the bat can drop from about 200 BPM to about 20 beats per minute. Typically in flight, a bat can have a heart rate of up to 1,300 beats per minute. So there's a very large difference between an active flying bat and a hibernating bat. At this time, bats can also go up to 45 minutes without taking a single breath. So this is beneficial because it allows the animals to survive the brutal winters that occur in the habitat. They do hibernate in caves where the temperature is a little more consistent but still cold. These animals are also insectivores, so during these months there's not an available food source. Insects are obviously not abundant in the winter, especially the brutal winters of Canada. So these animals have to find a way to survive without food readily available. And then next I'm going to talk a little bit about shallow hibernation with the eastern chipmunk. Eastern chipmunks are found in eastern North America. These commonly have very cold winters as well. The chipmunk will hibernate from late October into March. Uh, they hibernate in a small den or burrow. They collect food, they store it in the burrow. You always think of chipmunks with their big cheeks. They're storing food for the winter. So that is true. So they will go into their burrow, seal up the front entrance, they're the only entrance, and then go into a state of hibernation. But it's not a true deep hibernation. They will repeatedly wake and then go back to sleep. Um, they can wake for up to several days when they do wake. When they do wake, they're waking up to eat, they're waking up to urinate, things like that. When they're in their state of shallow hibernation, their heart rate normally drops to about 4 beats per minute, and their body temperature is maintained around 1 to 2 degrees above the temperature in the burrow. So, this is beneficial to the chipmunks because they are not able to form a large protective layer of fat to survive the cold winters. So, this method of hibernation protects them from the cold and allows some energy storage while there's not as much abundant food. Um, but the animal still does need to replenish energy, and that's why they wake up and eat. So, that is everything for exam one. Thank you very much.